I literally started solids in a bouncer. And I was like, my kid is sitting sort of upright. Do I really even need a high chair?
Feeding a child on a stroller or bouncer is also a choking hazard. One high chair I'd say avoid is your baby's feet are up. They're not even able to come down.
Big mistake that we made that made my child give up the high chair, I feel, earlier than I wanted, is because we started using it as a place of punishment.
Kids are not doing these things purposely. There's always a root cause. A lot of times kids reject high chairs because they know what's going to happen. Why do these work? Because when you put it in a baby's hand, it fits just their palm so that they can easily take it and put it in their mouth. Having the right tools can really be a game changer to your child building a really good relationship with food. Should you really spend on these expensive brands when it comes to plates and spoons and all of that? Silicone ones, when you put it on their neck and they have those food grabbers at the bottom, those are actually very heavy for the neck in the beginning. Sippy cups and 360 cups, to be honest, they were made for parents, not for babies, just to help reduce spillage. Should I give them the fruit nibbler? Simple answer, no. Hey parents, welcome to another episode of the Modern Indian Parent Podcast, a podcast that is redefining parenting in Indian families. I'm Sanchita, Daswani, a pediatric nutritionist.
And I'm Rinie, Gupta, a pediatric sleep consultant. And every Friday, we release new episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So don't forget to subscribe or follow on the platform of your choice.
In today's episode, we are going to be talking all about the different things you need when starting solids, from plates to spoons to high chairs. What do you actually need? What is the best material? What can you totally avoid? And do you really need to spend a lot on certain items? And we're going to get all into it today on the episode.
I'm so glad we're having this conversation, Sanchita, because when I was getting ready to start solids for my baby, I am always questioning whether this XYZ product is necessary. But when you actually head into an Amazon store or an actual baby store, there is so much stuff over there that sometimes you just walk out without buying anything. And that literally happened to me. The selection of high chairs at my local baby store, and then when I checked online as well, there were just so many. I just kind of gave up on the idea of high chair altogether. And I literally started solids in a bouncer. And I was like, my kid is sitting sort of upright. Do I really even need a high chair? And then I just went ahead with that. And it's only after a couple of weeks, I started watching some videos and learning more about it. And then I got the high chair. So how about we get right into this discussion by talking about high chairs? Is it a must have, or can we skip over it and just make the baby sit in our lap or in a bouncer or in a stroller? What's your opinion on this as a child nutritionist?
Yes, whenever we look at using something or getting something for the baby, we need to understand the purpose of it and why it's happening. Okay, so when you feed a baby on a bouncer or you feed a baby on a stroller, even I did it. I fed my kids on a bouncer because at that point I didn't really understand the whole why we're starting all of that, right? So when you're feeding a baby, how can a baby digest food? They need to be sitting in an upright position. You cannot start solids till your child can sit with minimal support. Why? Because when they can sit with minimal support, that means the muscles in their stomach, in their digestive system, are strong enough now to digest the food. That means that their whole body is strong enough to do this hand-eye-mouth coordination, put the food in their mouth, and that whole digestion can happen. Imagine if you are lying down and eating. I mean, it's not going to work. So if you look at it logically, feeding a child on a stroller bouncer is also a choking hazard. Because when you're feeding a baby upright and they bite a piece of carrot, the gag reflex will come into play and keep the food in front of the mouth. The tongue will push the food out. Compared to when you're on a recline, gravity comes in and can push the food past the gag reflex, and it can actually cause choking even with a puree. So that is why I really recommend a high chair, because number one, safe seating positioning. Number two, it also sets the routine for the baby that this is where meal times are going to be. Number three, if you're putting them on your lap or on a stroller, eventually they are going to try and get out of it, especially when they're crawling. And also it's actually going to be quite difficult for you to keep them there. So it is really about setting the routine and keeping them safe.
Right. I think that is exactly the advantage that I experienced once I got the high chair. It just became this designated place to eat. And, it's also like it made me feel comfortable that my child is always upright, nicely strapped in, so she can't just like walk out anywhere. So, yes, I totally get that. But can you tell me what are something that we look for in a good high chair? Because there are so many options out there, and this is exactly this decision overwhelm, which is what led me to not buying anything at all.
Right. So there's a few things you need to look for. Number one, that the high chair has a full upright positioning, because a lot of the high chairs, they have that recline, and some of them, they don't even go fully up, they're like this. So make sure it can be fully upright. Number two, make sure it has a footrest. Now this is really important. I'll tell you why. Because it helps keep baby stable, because a lot of the high chairs, the baby can't even reach the footrest. So then what happens is their feet start dangling. So imagine you're sitting at a bar and you're on the bar stool. Our feet end up dangling, and you also are not able to eat properly compared to when you're sitting on a table and your feet are flat. So upright, footrest, and make sure that it has a removable, easy to clean tray, because trust me, they get messy. You want to be able to take it out and clean every time. And also, if your baby's around, if you put your baby in, I want to make sure their elbows can reach the tray, because so many high chairs are so big for babies that they're so low, like the tray is here and they're low, or they're too high. So the positioning of that is really important. So if you're able to go to a shop and double check, that is really helpful as well. And I know a lot of parents wonder about the material, because I remember for my kids, I bought the high chair that has a lot of that cushioning, because I'm like, no, they need to feel supported. But actually, those cushioning chairs also kind of suck in your baby. It makes them kind of lean back, and they're not able to lean forward and really interact with the food. They're too big sometimes for them. So actually, the wooden chairs work really well, because the wooden chairs are the perfect positioning. The trays are not too big. They can put the elbows on the tray. The footrest can actually move up and down, and you can always buy a cushioning to add on the wooden chairs.
Amazing. Okay, so those are pretty like standard and good features to sort of look out for. It's not too complicated. You're saying straight back, footrest, easy to clean table, which is removable, and of course the positioning of the table should be. I mean, that makes complete sense. I hate sitting on bar stools. I will pay money just to be able to get a normal table at a restaurant, and of course, like the table, how far you're sitting and everything, it matters a lot as well. But could you recommend in terms of what are some actual products that parents can go out there and buy, like maybe some brands, some models that you as a nutritionist really trust?
Yeah. So I really love the Stokey brand. And the thing with that is that it is very pricey, but a lot of parents can use it for many years. And honestly, it just meets all the requirements. But even if you go on Amazon and type wooden chairs, you can find a lot of similar ones as well. Even Biaba has some chairs. Joey, they have more of the cushiony chairs, but they're still a decent option. And see, the thing with a lot of the high chairs is you can make adjustments. So, for example, a lot of people love the IKEA high chair because it's very like portable. You can move it around and it's very lightweight, right? But it's very big for the baby. So, ways we adjust is we actually put a cushion behind. So, like we put a mini pillow or a blanket, or IKEA now, some companies sell the footrest that you can add, because the IKEA one doesn't have that footrest. Or another hack is you can take those gym bands and you can actually put it there and add it so your baby's feet can be on it. I'm not so fussed on you have to spend a lot on the high chair. You can make adjustments, but one high chair I'd say like avoid is like, ones where your baby's feet are up. They're not even able to come down. Can you imagine you're sitting up and you're trying to lean forward and see the food and eat? So that is something to try and avoid. But Joey's okay, Stokey's okay, Biava has a few as well. And it's more about also seeing what is in your budget. So don't worry about you have to buy the expensive. You can modify the current high chair you have as well.
I love that. I love the IKEA hacks that you shared, because the IKEA at Antlik, I think that's what the model is
Yeah,
called.
anteloper. Yeah, anteloper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this plain basic white high chair that's available in all restaurants. And I know it costs like $30. Right? I'm not sure how, like it's like less than 2000 in INR, right? And just getting a few of those adapters, the footrest, a bit of a back cushion, all of those things just make that eating experience so much better in a pretty small budget. You don't need to spend like $600-700 on a high chair, because personally I am somebody who is very frugal with my baby expenses. Okay. Because I really feel that, like, okay, I don't know how long my child is going to use a certain item for. Like, for example, the Stokey Trip Trap, right? I considered getting that. But then I was like, again, I didn't know how long I'm going to use that for. And that's really what happened is that after age 2, my child just really preferred to sit with us on the table on one of our regular dining chairs with a bit of a booster cushion. And we allowed her to do that. And it kind of worked out great for us. So I was like, with 1.5 years of a high chair usage, would have really made, like, gotten my money's worth? Maybe not. But I do think the mistake that I made was getting that. You mentioned that, like, your baby's leg should not be bending down. Like, it should bend down, it shouldn't stay straight. I think that's the problem when the seat is too deep. And my high chair that I use, that was the problem. It was far too deep to make my baby's back rest against the cushion. Her head legs were just like straight out and they wouldn't bend. And I'm guessing that did cause like problem with stability. So thank you so much for teaching us about this. Jita, if you look into the market, right, when you envision a high chair, you're thinking of something that is like raised. But nowadays we're getting a lot of these lower seats as well for kids. If you look at the higher end ones, you see the Bumbo, which is very popular. And inside like the mid range one, you have these Love Lab high, like booster seats that are available that you can put directly onto the ground and use. So, can you tell us your opinion in terms of if these are good alternatives if the parent doesn't want to make the child sit on a high chair or against the dining table?
So I actually don't love those at all. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of these floor chairs, if you look at your baby sitting on it, you will see your baby's back is curved. Okay. It's actually not upright. And again, as we discussed, in order for digestion to happen well, we want the baby fully upright. So actually, it's not the best positioning for your baby to be in while taking in food. So I actually don't recommend it. There are a few brands come out, like I think one is called Upseat, which where your baby's sitting on the floor, but it's fully upright. So those are okay as well. But I also feel a lot of times people put them down on the play mat so that they can bring in toys and they can bring in distractions. And we really want to not mix the two together. So I would recommend to avoid those. And I remember that I was chatting with the therapist as well about milestones for babies. And a lot of parents put them in the bumbo to practice sitting. And she said something that was really important for parents to know is that end of the day, these things are containers. And it's very important for babies to have that flexibility to move their trunk, to lift and get things. So generally, I would avoid those. They're just not necessary and work on sitting outside. And then when ready for solids, you can put them in the proper high chair.
That makes sense. I think with the Bumbo, there is virtually no backrest. There are some floor seats available that have a proper backrest that allows them to be straight, but I know with the Bumbo, there is no backrest. So I can't imagine why they would just hunch down because they don't have anything to rest their back against. So that's a really good point. Sanchita, I do want to ask you though that one of the reasons why parents either may avoid getting a high chair or stop using it is because at some point their children refuse to sit in the high chair. And they will say, "Oh, my baby is crying so much, they just don't want to sit in." I had this phase is where every time I tried to make my baby sit in the high chair, she would curve her back and just like not go in. And that was just a phase we went through. We pushed through and got through it. But as a nutritionist, what are some tips that you have for parents who are apprehensive about using a high chair or are facing some trouble with it?
Yeah, it's always important to understand that kids are not doing these things purposely. There's always a root cause. So, to be honest, a lot of times kids reject high chairs because they know what's going to happen. They know they're going to be forced to sit there for 45 minutes and begged to eat, and they just are not interested anymore. Same thing happened to my kids when they were 1.5. As soon as I put them in the high chair, they'd start screaming because I know I was begging them, eat, please eat, all of that. Like it's not fun. I think we've lost the whole idea that meal times are about connection. So number one, see what is actually happening at meal times. Okay. Number two is also timing. Sometimes they're too sleepy or they're too hungry. So make sure it's the right time when they're actually hungry. The third thing could also be is that kids are going through so many stages, milestones. So suddenly they're learning to crawl and walk. They are not going to want to sit on the high chair for too long. So it's about managing your expectations. And one thing I tell my clients, especially with toddlers, because that's when they really start rejecting, is do a activity before, like do a dance party or do something, tire them out so that they can actually want to sit for even 10-15 minutes, no problem. And honestly, if you put them in and they don't want to sit, bring them off. You can try again in 30 minutes. It's okay then to put them on your lap, but have that routine, because honestly, our child will keep doing these things. But it's how you respond and handle the situation that will make them learn this is what's going to happen. They know I'm going to be put in the high chair. I cry, I'm out, I can run around and chill and enjoy my life. So it's really about managing expectations and trying to think, why are they going through this? So I wouldn't say don't avoid a high chair just because they suddenly don't want it. It's okay to adjust to the situation, but try and figure out why.
Absolutely. I feel like most of us will by default blame the high chair. As a sleep consultant, when the kid starts like not wanting to sleep in the crib, they blame the crib. I mean, the crib has been the same. The high chair has been the same, right? Just that your child has figured out they are going through transitions, and based on how you respond to those transitions, that is what will determine whether they continue to accept it or they just completely move away from it, right? And I think one really like I would say a big mistake that we made that made my child give up the high chair, I feel earlier than I wanted, is because we started using it as a place of punishment. And what I mean by that is, she was allowed to sit with us and eat, but if she would get up and walk off, then my husband say, I'm going to put you in the high chair if you get up the table and leave one more time. And he kept doing that. And after a point, that high chair just became a big no for her. And I think that is like behaviors like this where we are trying to inculcate good eating habits because we want them to stay on the table. It totally backfires because now there's so much negative connotation attached with the high chair. So thank you for sharing that. And I feel all of us really need to go and take a good luck, hard look at how we are responding at meal times. Can we move the discussion from high chair towards cutlery? Okay, I'm talking about cups, spoons, plates, and I feel again there are so many options out there that it can get very overwhelming. Let's start with basic spoon. Okay, what kind of spoon would you recommend for a parent to get? Can we just use our normal like steel dessert spoons, or do we have to get specialized spoons for the kid?
I remember when I was starting solids, I went to the store, the baby store, and I stood there looking at all the spoons, and I'm like, why are there 100 different spoons? And there were some that are like long, some are short, some like say like, oh, it cools down the food or changes color when it's too hot. And I was like, wow. And I remember buying spoons based on the color I liked. Because I have twins, I'll get a pink, I'll get a blue. And I walked out, I'm like, that's it. Now, as a child nutritionist, I know so much more, and I've been guiding my clients on this that first of all, when it comes to spoons, the most common ones you're going to see are these long spoons. Okay. Now, these long spoons are great when you are spoon feeding your baby because it gives you that distance to get it to the baby's mouth. But now, a lot of us as parents have realized that when it comes to starting solids, we want the baby to be in control what is going in their mouth. So that is why these spoons have come out. Okay, you have these num utensils and you have short spoons like this. This is the easy peasy one, but Biaba, Love Lap, a lot of other brands have more affordable options as well. Why do these work? These work because when you put it in a baby's hand, it fits just their palm so that they can easily take it and put it in their mouth. So this promotes self-feeding. Okay, compared to this, if you give your baby this spoon, they'll hold it and they'll end up going like this because it's so long. So that is why these spoons work really well. And also why I love spoons like these is because they have these grooves in it, because babies, they will go like this. They will try and swing things. So this helps keep some of the puree in while they are learning how to actually put it in their mouth. So it's okay for them to go like this, but this really helps them. I love the silicone material because it's so soft on their gums. Remember, we love steel because it is the best. It keeps the food nutrient dense. It keeps it safe. All of that keeps it warm. But it's really hard on their gums. And babies are shoving spoons in their mouth. So I would recommend if you're really concerned, you can keep the food in the steel bowl, but then the spoons try and use these because it just helps them. We want them to enjoy the experience and have the best experience. So having the right tools can really be a game changer to your child building a really good relationship with food.
Yep, I know. I think when it comes to self feeding, those are the best options. Are the num spoons. I absolutely love them. And I remember because they come in sets of two, I used to play this like spoon roulette where if I give a spoon to my kid, she just wouldn't let go of it. And so what I would do
Yeah.
is that I would just preload the other spoon. And if I offered that to her, then she would let go of the first spoon and then hold on to the second spoon. And we just kept on doing that. And it helps so much in getting started with the whole like self-feeding journey. So you mentioned just now that if you are one feeding, sure, you can have it in any bowl. You can have it in a ceramic bowl or a steel bowl. How does it matter? Because you are the one holding it. But if you have to give the food on the high chair to your baby, what's the best option to get?
Yeah, so we have to remember that when it comes to eating, it's a skill, right? And how do babies get good at a skill? They get good at by watching you, so it's very important to eat with them. But the other way they learn is through their senses. So it is very important that the food is in front of them. Now, obviously, if you put a steel bowl in front of them, they're going to take it and throw it away. So that's why suction plates are really, really helpful. So again, silicone is great. So a bowl like this is totally fine and it suctions on. So that way they can't let go of it. And you just put a bit of the puree here and you can put one or two pieces of finger food on the side and that's it. And if you want, you can also put the food directly on the tray. So you can put the finger food, you can just put spoon by spoon, put a little bit of puree. But of course, eventually you want to be using some plates. What I would recommend not using in the beginning is the wooden ones, especially like the wooden spoons because they're too big. Like if you compare this spoon to one of the wooden ones, they're quite big and it's very big for their mouth. So I would recommend at 6 months or about 1 year, really use the silicone stuff. And post one, you even get suction steel, you get suction wooden ones. Those are more for the toddler ages.
Got it. The bamboo ones I've seen, right? Like I've seen those like
Yeah, the
bamboo plates that
bamboo.
do have
Correct.
suction bottom.
Yeah.
But it's like I can see that the way it's sort of organized and the characters and everything, it's really to appeal more to toddlers. I feel with babies, they probably need something which has more maybe raised edges or something that suctions on better. But with silicone, I have seen this in a lot of Instagram reels. I didn't experience this. Is there could be food rejection because the silicone retains the taste and the smell of the detergent. Do you think that's the case? And if it is, then what are the alternatives we can go for?
Yeah, exactly. I've seen that a lot, and a few of my clients have experienced this as well. And this is really coming back to the material that is being used. So a lot of times we discuss about should you really spend on these expensive brands when it comes to plates and spoons and all of that. And I really go back to, whether we should get organic or not. And it's really comes down because, for example, Love Lap has a dupe of this. Okay, it's the exact same one. And also to get this in India, it takes time. So a lot of people ask me, can I use it? I said, look, Love Lap is a popular brand and they say they meet all the safety standards. So it's fine. But then it's up to you as a parent to really decide because I do feel the material being used matter. And that is why certain things are a bit more expensive, just like when you're buying organic versus inorganic. So yes, it can happen. It can even happen with some of the more branded or more expensive stuff. So I think obviously if you've used something for 3, 4 months, I think it's important to rotate and get a new one and also try the food always.
Absolutely. And I think, would you consider plastic to be safe? Like, I remember I used products from Oxytot, and Oxytot had like plastic plates with dividers with a suction base. So, is that something that is okay to use?
Yeah, so even I've used the Munchkin one. I remember they have a yellow, blue, like 3 different sizes, and it was suction. I used it a lot. So luckily now they're saying it's BPA free and there's no harmful plastic in there. But that would be my last option because we have better options out there today. I think as parents, we can make a more informed choice. It's hard when it comes to things like cups because sometimes kids need to see through. And obviously, like a glass and all is too heavy for them. So only for like plastic bottles while they're learning to drink from a straw cup and stuff. I feel sometimes that is better to use the BPA free clear ones. But for spoons and plates, you can easily get silicone.
Fair enough. Okay, so since we're on the topic of cups, let's talk about cups. All right. Because when your baby's under 6 months of age, either they're exclusively breastfeeding or mixed feeding, but they're using a bottle. But this is where parents start to ask questions about water. Can I now give water? How much water? What do I give the water in? So, could you tell us in terms of what are the cups that you would recommend a parent to buy along with this whole like starting solids set?
Yeah. So again, you go to the store, there's 100 different options of cups. So the first thing I would like to tell parents is that water is optional in the first year because they're getting all their hydration from milk. So number one, you do not need to get those big bottles, those big sippy cups because they don't need a lot. Okay. Number two is why are we then giving water? We are giving water to teach them the taste of it and to learn to drink from an open cup and straw cup because these are life skills that we want them to learn. Okay, so when you start solids, you start with an open cup post meals. Okay, what this is going to do is this is going to teach them the S sound because the way they have to close their mouth on it actually promotes speech and actually helps with the mouth jaw alignment. And what this will do is you give them a few sips. So you take it to their mouth, you go one, two, take it back. This will help them swallow any food in their mouth, help with digestion, just a few sips because we don't want to overdo it because it will come in the way of milk and the food. And when they are around 7, 8 months, then during the day while they're chilling, you start practicing with a straw cup. So no sippy cup, no 360 cups. Why? Because when you use a sippy cup, the motion is like a bottle. And honestly, we know a bottle is not the best option. The way they have to suck for their mouth is not great. So why would we introduce something else when we don't have to? Bottle, we have no choice. We need them to get a certain amount of milk in. The 360 cup is actually dangerous because, and I use it for my kids because I didn't know, but basically the way they have to hold it and the way they bite on it and they have to lean back, it's actually not safe for them to lean back and drink water because it can go down the wrong pipe as well. So it's actually not safe for them. So I would say open cup at 6 months, post the meals continue, and 7, 8 months straw cup because when they put their mouth on the straw cup, it teaches them the O sound. Okay. And the reason I like Easy Peasy, there's many brands, even the Philips Avent is good. Munchkin has a great one for toddlers as well, is because they have these little dots here. So it helps the kids know when to stop. And, these were also developed by feeding therapists. So you can see that the curves and all of that are done really for a specific reason.
Yeah, I can see that. I think with straw cups, it's one of those things where parents often wait till too late to introduce it because I have generally seen parents up to like age 1 or so, they're even giving water in the milk bottle because they think that their child may not be capable of it or they may sputter on the milk or something. But honestly, when we introduce the cups earlier, the straw cups, I feel like they still have that suck reflex. And later on, it becomes like harder for them to learn. And with the sippy cups, isn't it that like the gravity is also doing most of the work? The one which has like just like those spout and three holes in it, and the kids just like tilt it back and just let it like flow in their mouth. I think that's not a great option either.
Yeah, those are just not good. Just because why are you doing that? You're doing that so they get water in. But again, that's not the goal. And honestly, these sippy cups and 360 cups, to be honest, they were made for parents, not for babies, just to help reduce spillage, right? Compared to a straw cup and open cup, there will be a mess. So it's more like, okay, don't worry, you can take it on the go and they can just sip on it, but it's not really good for their long-term benefit.
That's I think again it's a certain wake up call that we need to do have that we got to make some certain hard choices even if they are the messier ones. So Sanjita, the next thing that I really want to ask you about, again, this is one thing that I bought because I thought was necessary. I didn't just buy it, I gifted it to multiple people. Are fruit nibblers. So, it came in like all different sizes. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. It grows with my baby. I can use it for a really long time. And, you stuff fruit in there. You just get them to like bite on it. Is that a good way to introduce your child to like tastes and textures? Like, is that something I should have bought?
I get this question every day because so many people are like, oh, my baby is going to start solids. Can I start practicing with the fruit nibbler? Or, oh, like apart from mealtime, should I give them the fruit nibbler? Simple answer, no. Why? Because it doesn't teach them about food. Okay, you're putting it in as this device and then they're not holding the food, they're holding something else and they are gnawing on it. So it's not actually allowing them to see, touch, feel, interact with the actual food. The time I recommend it is if number one, they're teething. So then, in fact, instead of the fruit nibbler, you can use those popsicle molds and freeze some fruit puree or breast milk formula, do that instead. The other time I recommend it is only for like pomegranate because that is like a choking hazard and there's no way you can give it. And the third time I recommend is if you've been doing solids for about a week or so and your baby is refusing to eat the food. So what happens is if you give that fruit nibbler, it kind of makes them feel a little bit more safe and comfortable and gnaw on it. So their mouth gets used to those flavors. So it'll just help only if your child is really struggling to eat. But for anyone starting solids, your baby's interacting, trying the food with their hands, feeling all of it, no need for the fruit nibblers.
Okay, that's one lesser thing that we could have spent money on then. I think that's fantastic. But one last thing that I want to ask you about, which was actually a very big investment, which again I'm not sure if I should have made it, is a baby food processor. It's like this like two-in-one steaming, blending kind of device. Is that something that you recommend as a nutritionist that parents should invest into as a must-have when you're starting solids?
See, it also depends on what method of solids you want to do. So, for example, all the parents I work with, we do a combination approach where we are offering both puree and finger food. We don't rush to the family pot right away because it's very overwhelming for parents to suddenly be giving food from the family pot. So, the point is when you are preparing safe finger foods and purees for your baby, you need to steam it compared to boiling because steaming actually retains the nutrients, and you do need to blend it, whether you make it smooth, whether you make it grainy. And if you're giving your baby finger food pieces, so if you start with baby led weaning, you're giving them carrot, you're giving them broccoli, you need to steam it again. So I tell all parents, if you have a kitchen setup where you have a steamer and a blender, any regular steamer blender, or if you want to do it on the pot also, and you feel you have the setup, you don't need a steamer blender. But if you don't have that or other people are using it in the house, it's good to have a steamer blender because even when your child is 9, 10 months and they're having rotis, you still are going to be giving them some steamed veggies. You still are going to be blending nuts and seeds for them. So the fact that it's a steamer blender, you will still be using it. So it's more about your kitchen setup and if you feel you really need one.
I think that that's a pretty good point. One of the reasons why I got a steamer blender is because most of us, we are now using plastic blenders. We may not be using steel blenders like the way our mums used to. And I've seen with plastic blenders, if you're blending like spices, onion puree, and all these other things that you use in your regular Indian kitchen, ginger, garlic, and all this, the taste, the smell sort of stays in that blender. And what I was afraid of is that if I blend my baby's baby food in that, it would start to taste and smell like that. So then I was like, okay, let's have a dedicated blender just for my baby. But what you're saying is that I don't need to spring for a steamer blender. Let's say if I have a steamer set up already, maybe I just invest in like a basic blender that I use specifically for my baby. Because a steamer blender, they're not cheap for sure. They're convenient, but they cost like upwards of like $200. It's one of those things where you're like, you can skip it. It's not like a must have, but like a good to have item. But one must have item, which I feel all of us really need, is bibs. Okay. Again, 100 types of bibs available, silicone ones, plastic ones, half, full, like Spock sleeve kind of bibs. So many out there. Which are the ones that you would recommend as a nutritionist for us to get?
So my favorite ones are the cloth ones that you can just put around the body and just around the neck with a very simple string, like very thin string. Because actually the silicone ones, when you put it on their neck and they have those food grabbers at the bottom, those are actually very heavy for the neck in the beginning. So actually the cloth ones are around their body, so they're very lightweight and they do get messy all around. So I would say you can use the silicone ones a bit later, on 9, 10 months, because it can actually strain their neck. And do you need a bib or not? I think so, because some of the parents I work with, their babies just wearing a diaper and then they just take them straight for a shower after because of the mess. But a bib, I think, is a good habit to get into because they will get messy.
All right. So we introduce a silicone bib later, and in the beginning, you're saying cloth or even plastic ones. Like, I think the one that I use for my kid is the one that like you would wear if the kid is painting because you expect the food to go everywhere. So it was like a full sleeve bib that like tucked up behind the neck. And I was like, okay, that is so nice because I just peel it off. I had like three of them for three different meals and we keep recycling them every single day. All right, so that's a good one to know as well. Is there anything else that you would like to tell parents when they are starting solids and starting to shop for all the items that they need to start solids?
Yeah, so I feel that a lot of times when we're shopping for our baby, we feel like, are we getting too much or are we getting less and is it enough? But I do want to tell you that it is worth investing in the right tools. When you have a baby, you feel it's too much things, but trust me, you will use a lot of it. And I feel we spend so much time in our kids' life researching about schools and play dates and spending on different other things. And when it comes to invest in that. It's in time, invest in understanding what they need, how to make the experience the best for them. Because so many times parents tell me, I don't want the mess. So I'm just not going to do baby led weaning. But the mess is what's making your child learn. So what my clients do is they buy a splash pad, or even the Stokey comes with this thing you can put under that catches all the food. So I feel as a child nutritionist, and I wish I had invested a bit more in the tools to make sure my kids had a great experience.
That is such a good advice because see, there's only like what about a X amount of budget that every family has, and I feel all of us are allocating far too much to clothes and toys, which I feel are absolutely not that necessary for development. But eating is literally a life skill that will carry them for the rest of their lives. And it is good to kind of change our mindset around like, okay, food, let's invest more there. And we can definitely slim down in other things as well. All right, Sanjita, we have learned so much from you today. If we needed like a consolidated guide, like a visual guide, kind of like a shopping list almost, do you have something like this that you can offer to our audience?
Yeah, of course I do. We'll link it down below for you guys. It is a complete guide on everything you need, everything we've discussed. It has links, it has discounts, so you can definitely check it out.
Thank you so much, Sanchita, for teaching her all of these things. And I just want to tell our audience if you love this episode, please drop a comment below to tell us what questions you have or what you liked about it. And definitely share it with a friend who has a baby under 6 months and is probably getting ready to get started with solids because it'll give them so much peace of mind and the right tools to do this correctly. Thank you so much again, Sanchita. And everybody else, we'll catch you on the next episode.